Welcome to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison.
I'm Molly, a former skeptic, now full-time energy healer, author, and your resident science meets spirit nerd.
And I'm Madison, a born and raised witch, teacher of the craft, and owner of not one, not two, but 3 metaphysical businesses.
Together we dig into low-effort witchcraft, spirituality, and the science that backs it all up, all with humor, heart, and a sprinkle of chaos.
So whether you're a curious skeptic or a seasoned witch, find a cozy spot, take a deep breath, and let's demystify some magic. Howdy doody, friends.
A howdy and a doody and a friends.
We are back with a highly requested, highly anticipated podcast episode for you today. I almost said video. This is categorically not a video. This is an audio medium.
It could be.
Could be, but my hair's wet.
Yeah.
In this moment, I've been slowly sprucing my office to make it so that we can video podcast.
Today's not that day.
I need the sprucing now. I need the commitment to the personal sprucing. Although I love that I say that I've been sprucing. Meanwhile, directly behind me, Molly can see a vase of dead flowers.
I thought those were intentional. They're very Madison core.
Right? They are. They do look like perfectly cartoonified dead roses. Mm-hmm. So you're welcome, actually.
I have behind me about 25 copies of Mundane Magic on a shelf.
At least. So
in between. Yeah. Describe what you're seeing.
So, well, I was just going to say that we both are like so perfectly exhibited in our behind us, in our backgrounds.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Molly has on her chair a massive crocheted sweater that she made.
It's hot pink.
And then 25 copies of her book, which is bright purple. Mm-hmm. And then is wearing a purple and pink and blue sweater. It's very cotton candy.
It's on brand.
It's on brand.
Is what you're trying to say.
Uh-huh. Everything you need to know about us in our current state of being.
And today we're going to talk about witch trials. The history of the witch trials, which honestly could be an entire podcast and our entire podcast. We're going to try and condense it down to one episode, which is a feat in and of itself. But this is a deep dive that I have been continuing to get deeper and deeper and diving in. So who knows? Maybe we'll do a part 2 one day. But we're going to do an overview of the witch trials, where they came from, why they happened, who was targeted, and how they still show up in our modern day lives.
Yeah, so are we talking specifically about the Salem Witch Trials, or are we going to talk about some of the ones that happened in Europe as well?
Oh, yeah. We're talking witch trials as a general across the world.
I'm excited because I have like a pretty general understanding of the Salem Witch Trials, right? Like the Crucible, we all read it in high school.
I didn't.
Really? It's pretty good. It's pretty good.
Okay. All right.
But I also feel like there's a lot of like myth busting that needs to happen around it. But the European witch trials are something that I don't know nearly as much about as I would like to.
Okay, you want to know something bonkers? Salem witch trials, there was 20 executions. The European hunts, there were hundreds in single towns, like tens of thousands of them.
I did know that they were much, much bigger, and it was like way more widespread than what happened here, which I think is interesting. And it happened way before, right? Am I correct about that?
Yes. Well, it spanned a broader period. It spanned like the peak was 1450 to 1750.
Okay. I know. I'm not going to try to spoil anything, but I have to know, are we going to talk about the theory that hallucinogenics were involved in the Salem Witch Trials?
No.
Okay, wait.
You can talk about that when we get to Salem if you want.
Yes. Okay, we'll hold it. That's the one thing that I like don't know. I mean, I know it's not like proven. Obviously, you can't like prove a lot, but it's one of the pervasive theories that I've read about in the Salem Witch Trials.
Okay, I like dipped a pinky toe in Salem. I mostly focused on Europe because that was what I knew less about. Growing up in Maine, I feel like all I knew about was the Salem Witch Trials. Like, I didn't know it happened elsewhere until like fairly recently, like within the last couple of years. And so I was not very interested in the Salem Witch Trials. I was more interested in like Europe.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But maybe we do
I'll
an
tell
entire
you.
episode on Salem. I don't know.
Could be fun.
Could be fun. Could be fun.
But first, before we get started and all of that, Molly, what was your magic moment this week?
My magic moment this week is I bought the perfect basics t-shirt at Costco.
Oh,
I know that this is the least magic of magic moments, but if you follow me on Instagram, you know I've been trying my best not to wear leggings and sweatpants every day of my life. Like I've been trying to find my personal style. And so I've been renting my clothes from Nuuly, which Madison turned me on to. And I've really been loving it. But what I've been finding is there's a lot of outfits that I want to try that are on the models and they look amazing. But I don't have your like standard basics like black t-shirt that fits nice, white t-shirt that fits nice. Like I didn't have a pair of freaking tights for a long time. I had to buy jeans. And I am very like particular about t-shirts because I find a lot of them to be sensory nightmares because they're too scratchy or they fit weird. But I found it's a white ribbed t-shirt
love.
that is, I really love the sleeves that go like 3/4 of the way down the bicep, especially since I got another forearm tattoo. I'm just like, ooh, that's the one. It fits me perfectly. It came in multiple colors. I bought almost every color. And it just felt like, you know, the universe was like, here, damn, here's what you've been looking for. And I was like, oh, I didn't even know that's what I needed. And now I'm excited about all the outfits I can put together. So
love.
that's my magic moment. What's
love
yours?
That. You know, today I am choosing gratitude in my magic moment. It's been a rough week. I told this story more in depth on our bonus podcast on the Patreon, but Percy was neutered last week and it was like a little bit more of a complicated procedure than usual. We knew it was going to be going into it and like he's fine, but this is my teaser to get you all to want to join our Patreon podcast for if you want to hear like the 45-minute version of this story. But the in 2 sentences is Percy's penis is stuck in the outward position, his red rocket, and it must be contained.
Manually.
By many, many different people at this point. Percy is everybody's sloppy seconds at this point. There's a lot. There was like we had to take him to the emergency vet. Again, he's fine. He has an appointment right after this. He's fine. We're working it out. But I've learned a lot more than I wanted to learn about a dog's genitalia in this last week. And we're also moving our warehouse at work. If you didn't know, we have a secondary location where we receive inventory and do all of like our shipping and processing and like our making. We just kind of have outgrown that like back room situation. And so we had one space, we're moving into a new space that's a little bit better. So I've just kind of been like delegated to stay at home dog mom because somebody has to watch this dog and put his penis away. and that's the truth. Like, imagine, and this is where my magic moment comes in, is like the level of gratitude that I have that I have a job and a life that is like all of this is possible. And I'm grateful that my dog is healthy and that, you know, that we have pet insurance. So I don't feel like this feeling of fear when he has to go to the emergency vet for me to say, excuse me, his penis is out. And so like, imagine having to explain that to like your boss, if your boss is not your mom.
No.
Like, you know, having to send the text at 2:00 in the morning of like, I'm sorry, I have to work from home this week. I'm at the emergency vet because my dog's penis is stuck outside his body. You know, like that's just not a conversation you want to have with a supervisor. And so instead it's like me texting my mom at 11:00 at night and being like, we're going to the emergency vet, I guess. Like, and it's like not even a question of why, you know, and working with my family.
My favorite thing about this story is I just know we're going to get people finding the podcast for the first time on this episode.
and so and to you, I say, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't want it to happen to me, you know? And so if I had to experience it, you guys have to hear about it. That's the nature of this relationship that we've cultivated here.
And you know what? If you're new here, this is normal.
Uh-huh. Well, actually, this not normal. This never happened before. This very specific situation is new.
Yeah.
For all of us, we're all learning a lot. And so if you'd like to know what to do when your dog's red rocket is stuck in the outward position, go join our Patreon because I detailed the process at great length.
I've been thinking about it every time I make my tea this weekend.
It's so bad. The hint here is that there's sugar involved. There's sugar involved in the situation. And so now I live in a world where there's designated sugar. There's sugar that does not get used.
Don't spoil the rest of it. Let people wonder.
I do have to keep sugar separate in a little container. It's so but he has finally laid down next to me. So
thank God.
God bless America. Also, we've learned that trazodone does not work on my dog, and neither does gabapentin. Any drug that's made to make this dog calm down. He's like, he's the dog equivalent of the people on TikTok that make the videos of them fighting the anesthesia, where they try to see how long they can go. That's what my life has been, is that I'm trying to mitigate the world's, and I know everybody in the comments is going to be like, you have an Australian Shepherd. Of course he's got energy, blah, blah, blah. I know. Trust me. I know. It's one thing to know that, and then it's another thing to watch your dog actively, his eyes trying to close themselves, and him fighting to keep them open and keep trying to play.
So you're having a good time.
I'm having such a good time. Right before we got on to record today, because we're recording 2 episodes, I was like, fuck, this has been such a weird week. And I have to think of 2 magic moments. And I was like, you know what? Just for this breath, everything's okay. Just for this breath, I am grateful. I'm grateful that he's fine and that they were able to, get everything handled. Everything except his penis. But you know what? We handled the balls, and that's half the battle. Right? Anyways, talk to him about the witch trials, please. Take my mind off of... I love to talk about anything that's not a dog's dick.
Oh, boy. Well, with that fantastic intro...
Imagine this is the part where Molly's like, actually, we're going to talk about the dog dick trials.
I
thought I said witch?
I want to give 4 audiobooks that I'm recommending if you want to dive deeper into this topic. These are 4 books that I read as literally not even some I read before I even knew we were doing this episode, and some I read for this episode, but read all of these on Libro FM. We're going to plug Libro FM here. They are an audiobook platform that supports independent bookstores, and you also get to actually keep the rights to your book. So if you cancel your membership, you don't lose access to them like some platforms. But I listened to all 4 excellent books. Highly recommend. We also have a code with Libro FM. It's Demystify Magic, and you'll get a bonus audiobook or something when you sign up with that. But we'll also leave these in the show notes. But Heal the Witch Wound by Celeste Larson, How to Kill a Witch by Zoe Venditazzi and Claire Mitchell. Totally butchering that. They have a podcast as well, but that was very much about the Scottish witch trials. Royal Witches, Witchcraft and Nobility in 15th Century England by Gemma Hallman. This was so interesting. So fucking interesting. I can't wait to talk about this. And then Lights, Camera, Witchcraft, A Critical History of Witches in American Film and Television by Heather Green. Not necessarily about the witch trials, but gave me some really good insight into kind of post-witch trials, how witches became portrayed in mainstream media. So those 4 books, audiobooks, highly recommend if you want to geek out more about this. Okay, so the witch hunts. Let me set the scene for you. This is really a story of how fear, religion, gender, and politics combine to create one of history's largest moral panics. We still see echoes of it today. And like we talked about before, a lot of times, especially in the US, I think people think it only happened in Salem and that Salem was a lot bigger than it actually was. Like I said earlier, Salem only had 20 executions. European hunts sometimes had hundreds in a single town. And even beyond Europe, witch hunts occurred in Latin America, parts of Africa, and parts of Asia. But the large-scale mass trials were mostly a European phenomenon. The approximate numbers, and of course we don't know exact numbers, but there were between 40 and 60,000 executions and between 100 and 120,000 trials between 1450 and 1750, which is Bonky Town bananas.
Yeah, that's really crazy to me, especially thinking, like, I wonder what the population of Europe was at that time.
No idea.
Because that has to be, like, a huge percentage of the population.
Yeah, totally. And, like, this was across a 300-ish year span. So still a lot. Like, 10,000 a week-ish.
I'm thinking about, like, what is considered a small town today, hundreds of years later, is, you know, a few thousand people. So if you go into a small town and execute 100 members of the community, like, that is massive. Yeah, massive. It just makes me think about, like, not to jump the gun and get immediately into, like, how it impacts us today, but it makes me think about, like, those massive conspiracy theories where that's what it must have felt like to them, of, like, oh my God, when you like get wrapped up into that hysteria and you think, like, a quarter of your community is all involved with the devil, like, it's wild to kind of see how that would be, like, I guess, like an old-timey example of literally, like, a conspiracy theory.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, for sure. We're going to talk mostly about witch hunts in Germany, Scotland, England. It also happened in Switzerland, France, colonial America. Of course, like, America was, like, the smaller wave. But German states had the largest number of executions, which I found interesting, but not surprising. So, to set the stage for you, the witch trials really started to take up steam during times of religious upheaval or political instability. And we're going to talk so much about that. If you are new to the podcast, this is a very feminist-leaning podcast. I do have a degree in what was called women's studies at the time. I don't know what they'll call it now, but...
Wait, is it not called women's studies anymore? I guess that makes sense.
I don't think so. I think it's called gender studies now, though I don't know. I've been out of college for a long time.
I guess that is a better name for it. It just... Usually when you... Actually, I'm going to stop the sentence because it sounds like I'm trying to make you sound old.
I am old.
I was going to say, usually when you say back in my day, it was X. By the time I experienced it, it was something else. And so I was surprised that they called it women's studies when I was in college. But you're right. I think it is gender studies now, as it should be. Sorry. Molly's birthday is in a week. And I'm really leaning into the...
Really leaning in.
The old fart.
Really hammering it in. But what was also interesting is there were peaks of witch accusations during climate disasters and times of disease and famine, which we will talk about why. But mostly, really, what it came down to was shit was bad and society was looking for someone to blame. That's kind of like the core premise.
That feels like just the human story. Especially when you say, like, it happened during times of climate disaster. It makes me immediately, I'm like, and people are saying that Zohran Mamdani is, like, making it snow in New York City. Like, that he's controlling the weather.
Okay. Yes. A witch accusation in the modern day.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Okay, I'm going to hit you with a couple of myths that we're going to bust. I want you to let me know if you knew this was a myth or if you've heard this myth before.
Okay.
Or if you know the reality.
Okay.
Gonna softball one to you. Myth. All witches were burned at the stake.
None of them were burned, right? Like, that wasn't a thing.
Actually, some were.
Okay.
Right? So this was a myth that like so even we're guilty of this, right? Because in our Gerald Gardner episode, one of the things that prompted my interest in a bunch of these books is someone DM'd me and was like, "Hey, in your Gigi episode, you said that witches weren't burned, and that's not actually true. Like, there were some burnings." And then she gave me some of these resources I listened to, and I was like, "Oh my God." So,
but none were burned in Salem, right? Like, they were all, there was no burning in Salem.
I don't believe there was burning in Salem. Most of the witches died in Salem through hanging. Mm-hmm. A lot of burning was more common in parts of Europe.
Okay.
But there was actually, so the myth was at first all the witches were burned at the stake. And then it was like, no, none of them were. And now we're like, actually, like, it's a lot more nuanced. There were death by hanging, burning, and beheading. Mm-hmm. And even though some witches weren't killed through burning, and I'm saying witches in like quotations because obviously like not everyone accused was a witch, but I'm just put those in quotes.
I would argue like most of them.
I mean, it depends.
Right?
We'll get into it. Let me, don't jump the gun.
I can't help it. I have thoughts too.
I know. I think it depends how you would define a witch, and I don't know how they would define themselves. But anyway, even though many of these witches were not killed by burning, their bodies were burned because the belief was that's the only way that you could actually fully destroy a witch was with fire. Okay. So I think that's where like a lot of that myth came from. And then, of course, Hollywood made it the universal image. Mm-hmm. So that's myth number one.
It immediately makes me think of American Horror Story, when the witches are tied to the stakes.
Yeah, right? Exactly.
It's such a good scene. Can I just make the blanket statement really quick? Like, this is so devastating.
Yeah, it's awful. It's horrible. And it gets worse and worse and worse the deeper you go. So, like, trigger warning of all the things.
Yeah, like, I just can't, I don't know. I cannot imagine what it must have been like to live in a world where like that was semi-common behavior. Like that was a semi-common thing to witness. Mm-hmm.
Oh, not semi-common. Common.
Like, oh, it must have been like a lot of people's friends and
their
loved
children.
Children and mothers and sisters. Like, mm-hmm. And like fucking being accused of being a witch and knowing that the only thing that will absolve you is death. Like, that was the thing I know in Salem, mm-hmm. that all of the tests, quote unquote, to prove whether or not someone was a witch, they were only proved innocent if they died.
Oh, we'll talk about the tests and how fucked up they were.
It's like, it's just really, really, it never ceases to amaze me how horrible humans can be to one another. Mm-hmm. And I think that when the numbers are so massive, like tens of thousands, it becomes like the people just become these like dots. Like when we say, oh, there was only 20 executions in Salem, where it's like, that's fucking 20 people. That's crazy.
That's a school classroom.
Right? And so the fact that like that is considered a small instance.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just, like, when you're listing these ways that these people were murdered, it's just like, I don't know, so fucking devastating.
Yeah, it's awful. It's awful. Are you ready for myth number 2?
Yeah, I forgot that was what we were doing.
Have you heard the myth that witch hunts happen mostly in the Dark Ages?
Probably. I don't know. I don't, the thing is, history, not my strong suit when it comes to dates. Not a person who remembers numbers well.
Yeah,
so
fair.
If I ever heard that myth, it went in one ear and out the other because I don't know what, like, you could tell me that the 1700s are the Dark Ages.
Fair. Okay. Fair. The reality is that the witch hunts exploded after the Middle Ages during a time when Europe was also experiencing the printing press. And we're going to talk about how the printing press impacted the witch hunts. But it wasn't just like long, long, long ago. Like there was modern discoveries happening at this time.
Yeah. I don't know that I knew that myth.
Okay, next myth. Only women were accused.
I do know that that is not true.
Do you know what percentage of the accused were men?
No, I do not know. Can I guess?
Yeah, please guess.
I'd like to guess 15%.
20 to 25-ish.
Yeah, that makes sense. As I always think about the guy in Salem who was like, more weight.
Oh, yeah. The guy with the rocks.
Mm-hmm.
It really depends on like where, because especially in parts of Iceland and Finland, men were the majority of those accused. But across Europe overall, it was 75 to 80% were women.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, here's the next myth.
Okay.
Witch hunts ended because people stopped believing in magic.
No, because that would, I mean, first of all, people still believe in magic now.
Yes, that's true. That's true. And we'll talk about what kind of quote unquote ended the witch trials, but a lot of it was changes in the legal system, which I find fascinating. Okay, here's my next myth for you. And maybe I'll give you these as true or falses.
Okay, yeah, I was going to say, yeah, that's more, yeah.
True or false? Witch trials were purely about religion.
False.
Correct.
They're about power.
Yes, power and social control. So religion mattered, but a lot of the witch hunts were also driven by politics or economic tension, climate disaster, gender roles and expectations, and even neighborly disputes. Okay, so let's talk about how they began. I'm going to dive down a rabbit hole within the rabbit hole right now. Are you familiar with the term charmer?
No.
Okay.
Other than like, he's a charmer.
Okay, I'm so excited. Okay, this was something that I found fascinating. But back in this time where this was happening, people believed that magic was definitively real. And there were these practitioners called charmers that across Europe, basically like throughout this time period, there were people who practiced folk magic openly and were not considered witches. Not witches, though doing services that could be considered witchcraft. We're talking healing illnesses, removing curses, finding stolen objects, protecting livestock, love charms, blessing crops, protection from evil spirits. In these communities, charmers were respected and sought out. And some charmers used explicitly Christian magic. So they use Bible verses, invoking saints, calling on God or the Trinity, prayers, the sign of the cross. They were often called verbal charms. And because they invoked Christian authority, these practices were tolerated. Basically, you could do the same as witchcraft, but claim you were a Christian charmer. And as long as you weren't accused to be a witch, you were good, which I found so interesting.
That sounds like the job that I was meant to have. Like
a Christian charmer?
I like, not specifically a Christian. Were they all Christian? Because the idea of like, I just live in my hut. I don't know why it's a hut. I just always imagine myself as an old-timey witch and I live in a hut. That's like my favorite. That's literally the inspiration I gave my tattoo artist for my sleeve. I said, imagine I'm a witch that lives in a hut. So that's just my personal fantasy that I'm projecting onto these people. But I just would love to live in my little house and people come seek me out like Sherlock Holmes, you know, where they always knock on his door and they're like, please take the case.
Yeah.
And people are just like, can you please come bless my crops? Can you please come make me a love spell? I guess that is kind of like my job now at the store.
Yeah, I was going to say.
But like, I just would love to like just be the person that like walks around blessing everybody's shit.
Unfortunately, I don't think you would be eligible during this time because you are, in fact, a woman and you do not subscribe to societal norms.
Oh, well,
No.
Those are easily remedied. I thought you were going to say I don't think you'd be very good at it.
No, I think you'd be great at it.
I don't know why I thought that. I was like, damn, she's about to be mean to me.
No, I would never. Not on the day that you're dealing with a red rocket.
Right? I've got enough. The universe is being cruel enough as it is.
But when I was doing my research, I just found this to be so interesting. And so I started to dive in deeper around like, what is this line between respectable charmer and accused witch? And often it depended on whether the magic was seen as helpful or harmful, among other things, right? Like,
yeah.
We'll get there. But basically, if people believed someone caused illness, death, crop failure, or if their spell didn't work, they would quickly shift from healer to witch. It was also a matter of social reputation, right? Like if the practitioner was well-liked, connected to powerful families, respected in the community, they were seen as a healer. But if they were poor, isolated, argumentative, female, without male protection, they were more likely to be labeled a witch. If they evoked God, they were more likely to be a quote-unquote healer. If they evoked or were believed to invoke the devil, they were seen as a witch. So basically, if a practitioner could convincingly frame their work as Christian healing, they might be tolerated, but they also run the risk of basically being suspected of demon worship. So essentially, during the late medieval and early modern period, church leaders started arguing that all magic, even helpful magic, must involve demons. This was a gradual shift that happened between like the 1300s to the 1500s. And the idea became if a human is controlling supernatural forces, it must be through the devil. And this is one of the things that helped fuel the witch hunts, which, I mean, if you read any witch on the internet's comment section, you can see this this idea is still very present in some circles. Mm-hmm. There is also another important difference. Men were often tolerated longer. Women were much more easily labeled as witches, especially if they did not fit conventional societal gender standards. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I found interesting is that there's a historical theory that witch hunts actually increased after male doctors started professionalizing medicine, because many of the women accused were midwives and folk healers competing with them, which I was like, oh, that makes so much sense.
Yeah, that's something that I've heard of, specifically with midwives, like the development of like, it's not gynecology, but you know, like,
yeah,
medicine surrounding pregnancy and birth was like always very centered in like what men believed in was easier for men.
Yep.
And then the work that women have been doing to make childbirth easier for hundreds of years was like
dismissed as witchcraft.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, midwifery, but also herbalism. Mm-hmm. That was another one that came up pretty commonly. Are you familiar with the Malleus Maleficarum?
No, that doesn't sound real.
Wait, really? Oh
no.
My God. Okay. So this is Latin for the Hammer of the Witches. It was a widely circulated book on identifying, prosecuting, and eliminating witches. It was written by Heinrich Kramer and was published in 1487. And the book became one of the most infamous texts associated with the European witch hunts. And it became one of the first most widely published because of the invention of the printing press. They were able to get a ton of copies into people's hands. Mm-hmm. What I found very interesting is the origins of this text. So this came about during a period where the Catholic Church was increasingly concerned about heresy. Are you familiar with heresy?
No.
This is a word that comes up a lot in the witch trials, but it basically means like you don't subscribe to the dogma of a certain religion.
Okay.
Kramer had been investigating witchcraft cases, but encountered resistance from local authorities and church leaders who were skeptical about his aggressive prosecutions. So what did this man do? He was like, oh, y'all think I'm too aggressive? Let me publish a book about it. And then we're going to use this book as like the doctrine for how to prosecute witches.
Okay, I did know that existed, but I didn't know its name.
Okay, fair. There were 3 main sections of this book. One is the reality of witchcraft, which basically argued that witches were real and posed a grave danger to Christian society. It claimed that witches made pacts with the devil, renounced their faith, and used demonic power to harm people, crops, and animals. This was an extremely misogynistic section. It claimed women were more likely to become witches because they were, quote unquote, weaker, more emotional, more susceptible to temptation. Yes, exactly. The second section was all about the alleged abilities and behaviors of witches, which I found so interesting. According to the book, witches could cause illness and death, destroy crops and livestock, control weather, harm children, shapeshift, attend secret gatherings with the devil, and so much more. Many of these claims were based on folklore, theological speculation, and earlier writings about demons. I have a couple of very interesting claims that some of which I wish I could do as a witch. The first is witches could steal men's genitals.
Stop.
Yes. Apparently witches could magically remove men's genitals and keep them hidden away.
Stop. That's really funny. I do wish I could do that.
The book describes a story where a man allegedly finds multiple stolen genitals in a bird's nest.
Stop!
where they are supposedly kept alive and fed oats.
Fed where?
In the bird's nest.
No, I mean, like, how is it fed?
Through the mouth.
I don't like that. I don't like calling it a mouth. It's not a mouth.
That assumption means that a dick has internal organs in and of itself.
Right? Like it has a stomach. And so then where does it poop?
Where does it poop?
In the bird's nest. And so it's just rolling around in its own oat shit.
Oat shit. Oh.
And then my question is like, actually, I don't even want to say what I have.
Chirping?
I have more than one question.
Chirp. They're just
I have a
in the
lot of
bird's
questions. Yeah, if they have mouths for eating, they must have mouths for chirping. But like
Kramer does insist that the organs were not literally removed, but hidden through illusion, meaning the victim only believed they were gone, which then leads to more questions about the bird's nest.
Right, yeah. So then what's in the bird's nest? And I really do have to choose to believe that like all of this is rooted in like you didn't make that up out of thin air, did you? Like what did somebody see in a bird's nest? You know how it's like mermaids were manatees or whatever?
Mm-hmm.
Like what is the manatee of this situation?
Oh, I really love this example because it just emphasizes how a lot of witchcraft accusations often focused on sexual anxiety and the control of male bodies, which then I wrote, the call is coming from inside the house.
Yes.
Oh, okay. My next example I wanted to give is that allegedly witches could cause impotence and destroy marriages.
That's why it happens. Honey, it's not me.
The author,
it's the witch down the street.
Argued witches could magically block fertility, prevent erections, and create hatred between spouses. Once again, the call is coming from within the house.
Yeah, like maybe your wife hates you because you spend all of your time writing this awful book.
Allegedly, witches could also control weather and destroy crops. They could raise storms, hail, lightning, destroy farms and livestock. Oddly enough, this belief was especially powerful during times of famine and climate instability, such as the colder climates of the Little Ice Age.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Like, everybody is looking for someone to blame for, like, the bad things that happen.
The final section of the book was a practical guide for the witch trials, basically how to identify and prosecute witches. And it instructed authorities on how to identify suspected witches, how to conduct interrogations, how to extract confessions using torture, and how to gather testimony, which we will talk all about. But I just found it so interesting that I think about this a lot, where it's like, okay, what are the dominoes that had to fall for this to happen the way that it did? And it was like, if this book wasn't published at the same time that the printing press was, there, then it wouldn't have spread as far. And would we still have, these witch trials the same way? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It was like a perfect storm of things. So let's talk about how a witch was defined. You will be not shocked to know that Madison and I would both be considered witches at the time.
I wonder why.
With our colorful hair. But majority of who was targeted were women, particularly older women or widows or poor women or women who were outspoken or seen as difficult, social outsiders, healers, midwives, herbalists. Basically any woman who did not fit into societal norms of what a woman, quote unquote, should be.
Mm-hmm. Well, they'd get Molly first because she's old.
Wow. Oh, wow.
That's a callback.
Yeah,
Sorry.
Thank you.
I just kidding.
It's just kidding. Okay, some signs of a witch. Some physical signs of a witch.
Mm-hmm.
Authorities often searched women's bodies for supposed physical evidence of a witch's mark, which could really be any mole, birthmark, scar, or skin tag. Anyone listening have one of those?
Which?
You're a witch. Extra nipples, which were called witches' teats, believed to feed a demon familiar.
Harry Styles, you're a witch.
Chandler Bing. Insensitive spots on the body. It basically, if a needle prick didn't cause pain or bleeding, it was proof that she was a witch. Here's a not fun fact. Oftentimes, they used a retractable needle for this test, the same ones used by stage magicians.
Ew.
Isn't that fucked up?
The original version of a cop planting weed in someone's car.
Literally.
That's so nasty.
Yeah. Another physical sign of a witch was unusual appearance. So any kind of deformity, disability, or even just looking different, not being conventionally attractive, all of those things could be signs of a witch. Behavior-based signs. I thought these were really interesting because the way that I think about the witch trials is it's all about like oppressing the power of women generally. And when you look at these signs, that becomes so apparent. So one is being argumentative or outspoken, but also gossiping or just being in the vicinity of other women.
Mm-hmm.
Refusing charity, like turning someone away who asks for food or help. Here's what's really funny, not funny, but here's what's really fucked up is, so hanging out with other women, that makes you a witch, but being socially isolated also makes you a witch.
Uh-huh.
Being too knowledgeable about herbs or medicine, being known as a healer, herbalist, or midwife in the community, owning a cat or other animal companion, being a widow or unmarried older woman. This one's my favorite. Being too successful or too unlucky. So again, you're fucked either way.
Yep, you have to have the appropriate level of friends and the appropriate level of luck. When I listen to these, I'm like, it's a wonder that anybody lived.
Right? I know. I'm like
if you're holding everybody to this standard, then like,
not
especially
everybody.
if you're a woman.
Yeah, not everybody.
Like,
just women
but
who didn't fit into societal norms.
Then like they're all gone. Like,
yeah. 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 There were also some accusations that were supernatural, right? Like being seen flying at night, attending witches' sabbats with the devil, turning into an animal, using familiars or animal spirits, casting curses, making pacts with the devil. Many of these claims came from confessions that were extracted under torture. Let's talk about the tests used to identify witches. So we talked about the pricking test, which basically was like they took a needle, they pricked you. If you didn't bleed, you're a witch. Again, they used retractable needles, which is so fucked up. It's like they knew that this shit was not legitimate. That's the part that like gets me is I feel like when I first started researching, I was like, oh, they like genuinely believed this.
Mm-hmm.
But then when I started learning these things, I was like, so they didn't even fucking believe it? Like they were just like, yeah, fuck this bitch. Let's
also I have to like
it.
I have to wonder, is it the kind of thing where like they convince themselves of like, oh, we have to create like the most hard evidence to prove, you know, like, oh, she's so slippery that like we can't catch her any other way. We have to do it this way so people believe us.
I don't know.
You know, like it's just, and I'm sure like the answer is somewhere in the middle or like both, you know, I'm sure it depends.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't a monolith, but like it is so wild, like the idea that you can convince yourself of that, if that is the case for some of the people that were participating in this. I mean, either way, like it's insane, but
yeah,
to be able to work yourself up of like, I have to lie to protect these people. Maybe that's just me assuming the best in some of them.
Yeah, I have no idea. The other one is the swimming test, which is where the accused person was tied up and thrown into water. And if they floated, they were guilty. And if they sank, they were innocent, but also probably dead.
Mm-hmm. That is the one that always comes to mind for me of like how fucked the tests are.
Yeah. Another one was a lot of times people claimed that the accused appeared in visions or dreams harming them. And that was seen as evidence that someone was a witch.
Mm-hmm.
What I also think is interesting is during this same time, these charmers that we talked about earlier were often selling anti-witch services. So it created this whole like counter magic economy where charmers were being paid to identify witches, remove curses, and break spells. So in some villages, the same belief system produced both witches and witch hunters, which was just baffling to me. Again, like, where is the line of like, okay, I'm removing curses as a charmer versus removing curses as a witch? It's just fascinating to me.
Yeah.
What I found really interesting about the Royal Witches book in particular is it really opened my eyes to how witch accusations were used to disempower women of power. Like a lot of times women who were accused were had some form of independence, property ownership. They refused social roles. They may have been heir to a throne in some cases. We'll talk about a few of those. Widows were often accused because they had assets left over from their husbands. And women healers were seen as threatening to the emerging male medical authority. So it's like essentially the best way to remove a woman from position of power and influence was to claim she was a witch. So let's talk about some notable witch trials. These are not exhaustive. These are just the ones that I found interesting or, you know, had fascinating people involved. So the first we're going to start with is the Scottish witch trials. Are you familiar?
I mean, I know that they happened there. Like, I know I've heard, but I don't know that I know any specific stories, or like, if I do, I don't know that they're specifically Scottish.
Okay. So this was, if you listen to or read How to Kill a Witch, you'll learn a ton about this. That book is really interesting because it's like equal parts nonfiction, but also there's like narrative elements woven in. Like they wrote fictional accounts of like some of the people that they talk about in the book, which I found really interesting, added like a lot of color for me.
Oh, that's cool.
And their accents are great if you listen to the audiobook. I loved it. So Scotland experienced one of the highest execution rates for witchcraft in Europe. And between the late 1500s and early 1700s, historians estimate that around 4,000 people were accused and roughly 2/3 were executed. The Scottish Crown actively supported witch prosecutions, particularly under King James VI, who became deeply interested in witchcraft after a series of storms threatened his ship during a voyage. The Scottish trials were notable for their extensive use of torture and interrogation, and they, of course, disproportionately targeted women. Mm-hmm. One trial that I found to be really interesting is that of Agnes Sampson. Have you heard this name before?
Maybe.
Okay. This was a part of the North Berwick trials of Scotland in the 1590s, and they became entangled with the royal court because the accused witches were said to have attempted to kill King James VI through the magical storms that I mentioned. So King James, he became obsessed with this case and personally oversaw interrogations. Some of the accused women were said to have raised storms to sink the king's ship and conspired with the devil against the monarchy. And this was one of many trials that were basically the king or whoever was in power in these parts of the world basically were like, oh, people don't like me. I'm going to accuse someone of a witch, and that's why they don't like me, or something bad happened to me, and so therefore it must have been a witch and not my bad luck. And as I'm thinking this, I see echoes of that happening in the political climate of the U.S. right now. Mm-hmm. Like, I could not, when I was going through a lot of this research, I could not stop thinking about what is happening with ICE and how our current president is talking about immigrants in our country right now. Like, it's a very similar mindset, way of thinking. It's a very similar interrogation process. It's a very similar way of trying to control, right? Like, something bad happens, it's the immigrants' fault. We better torture them and imprison them and until they prove otherwise. Like, that's literally a modern day witch hunt. Like, they're following the playbook.
Yeah, this is what it seems like these political powers have been doing since the beginning of time is, there's unrest, something bad has happened. Find someone to blame and rally troops against them so that the troops are not rallied against you.
Yeah. It, like, when I was reading some of these, I was like, oh, that literally just happened. Like, these things are literally happening today in our country. And that just gives me the heebie-jeebies. So I just wanted to point that one out here. Okay, the Pendle witch trials in 1612 are one of the most well-documented witch trials in English history. This is a case centered on two poor families in Lancashire, the Device family and the Chaddocks family, who accused each other of witchcraft amid long-standing tensions and competition for local resources. From this case, 12 people were charged with causing illness and death through magical means. 10 of the 12 were ultimately executed. And the trial records provide unusually detailed insight into how community rivalries, poverty, and local conflict could fuel witchcraft accusations. What I found through a lot of this research is that sometimes you could just beef with a neighbor and the neighbor would call you a witch and then you would be tried and executed. Like,
yeah.
If I can't beef with a neighbor, nothing is sacred.
Yeah, seriously.
Like, that should stay within the confines of my local neighborhood Facebook group and my cul-de-sac.
And you know what? That's between me and God.
Truly, truly. Okay, commercial break, but like the kind you actually want to listen to.
This episode is sponsored by Libro FM.
Listen, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Reading fairy smut is a valid form of sacral chakra healing.
But let's face it, sometimes reading with your eyes is not the vibe. Sometimes you want to tap into your inner feral energy while doing the dishes. That's where audiobooks come in.
And no one does it better than Libro FM, our favorite audiobook platform where you actually own your audiobooks and your money goes to support your fave local indie bookstore, not some billionaire's rocket fuel. And to sweeten the deal, you can click the link in the show notes of this episode and use the code DEMYSTIFY to get 3 audiobook credits for the price of 1 when you switch to Libro.
You could heal your sacral chakra, regulate your nervous system, and awaken your inner fae in 1 moon cycle. Just saying.
Click our link in the episode description to start your journey. Pick your fae, pick your shadow daddy, support your local bookstore, and say yes to sacral realignment through magical softcore chaos.
This is energy work. With wings and leather. You're welcome.
And thank you to Libro FM for sponsoring this episode. And we're back. Witch hats on, brains open. Next, we're going to talk about the Wurzburg witch trials, which were from 1626 to 1631. The Wurzburg trials were among the largest and most devastating witch hunts in European history. This took place during the political instability of the 30 Years' War and spiraled into mass accusations. Mm-hmm. Historic records suggest hundreds of people were executed, including children, priests, and members of the local elite. So this was one that spiraled outside of just like quote unquote conventionally witches, and just like people were getting accused left and right. It spread so widely that even people connected to the ruling government were condemned.
Wow.
This is how, like, these witch hunts could escalate so much. So when basically a witch was tortured or interrogated, she would often be tortured until she named other witches. Mm-hmm. And some women were even tortured to the point where they named their own children.
Oh my God.
Yeah. Some witches some women were forced to watch their children be tortured until they confessed or named others. And so, again, like, this is one of those where it starts to spread really rapidly, where like one accused witch could turn into 50 very quickly. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about Katharina Kepler, who was the mother of Johannes Kepler, who was a famous astronomer. This happened in Germany in 1615. Katharina was accused of witchcraft by a neighbor after a personal argument. The evidence was she was elderly, she was widowed, and she was known to make herbal remedies. She spent 14 months in prison awaiting trial. Ugh. Her son, who again was a famous astronomer, personally defended her in court and wrote a legal defense to save her life. She was eventually released but died shortly after. But Johannes was considered one of history's greatest scientists, and even his mother wasn't safe from accusations. Okay, the Bamberg witch trials were in 1626 to 1631, and they were infamous for how widely accusations spread. So this was under the authority of Prince Bishop Johann George II. Hundreds of people were arrested and executed. What made Bamberg particularly shocking was that members of the political and social elite, including city officials, wealthy citizens, and even the mayor, were accused and executed.
Jesus.
Even the mayor. The trials relied heavily on torture to obtain confessions, which often led the accused to name additional witches, creating a self-perpetuating cycle of accusations. Like I said, horrible. All of that happened before the Salem Witch Trials, which were in 1692. Mm-hmm. This is one of the most famous witch hunts in history, even though it was significantly smaller than many European ones. I'm curious if any of our European listeners, is the Salem Witch Trials as like well known to you, or some of these other ones more well known? Like, I'm really curious. Again, like, I grew up in New England, so Salem Witch Trials was like a part of our history. It was like something we talked about every October.
Mm-hmm.
And it became almost like, I don't know. It's so interesting because like Salem is kind of like a tourist attraction.
Yeah.
And so growing up, it wasn't even like, ooh, people were murdered. It was like akin to like a spooky story, you know, like it was like watching Halloween Town.
Really?
Was the same as talking about Salem Witch Trials.
That's really interesting.
Yeah. I mean, like, obviously it was horrible, but like, it was horrible in the same way watching a horror movie is. Like, it wasn't, no one really dug into me the reality of like this. I don't know if that makes sense, but
I get what you mean. My education around it was very different. I mean, like,
really? Well, you grew up in the South.
Exactly. So, like, I wonder, like, what level that brings to it. Because, like, we learned about it. Really, I learned about the Salem Witch Trials in my English class, learning about the Crucible. Like, I'm sure it was in one of my American history classes, but not, like, a huge part of it.
Yeah. I'm curious. I want to hear from our European listeners. I want to know, were the Salem Witch Trials as talked about? Or did you know this history of like the other European witch trials? Are there trials that I haven't even mentioned that are even bigger? So basically, 1692, a group of girls in Puritan, Massachusetts began experiencing mysterious fits and accused several women in their community of witchcraft. Over the course of the trials, more than 200 people were accused and 20 were executed, mostly by hanging. The trials ended after growing public skepticism about the reliability of the evidence and the legitimacy of the court. And we have to talk about Bridget Bishop. Are you familiar with the first woman executed at Salem?
A little bit, but tell me.
Bridget Bishop was known for wearing bright red clothing, running a tavern, being outspoken, and having been married 3 times.
Diva.
Yeah, diva. Neighbors claim she bewitched their pigs, made them sick, and appeared as a specter in their dreams. The evidence against her was damning. The evidence included a supposed witch's mark on her body. Again, that could have been a birthmark, a scar.
A mole or a skin tag.
And also, there were testimonies that her ghost attacked people.
Well, of course.
Of course. She was hanged in June of 1692. Many historians believe she was targeted because she violated Puritan expectations of how women should behave, which, again, makes her a diva. I want to tell you about a couple other notable witches that I found so interesting. The first is Joan of Arc. What do you know about Joan of Arc?
I don't want to say that I know the story. I'm always afraid to say that I know anything.
Right.
I feel like if I say I know a story and then I like say something wrong, I will be embarrassed for the rest of my life. So I will say I know a little bit about Joan of Arc.
Okay. All right.
I know that she was a woman in a male-dominated field.
Yes. Which, you might be shocked to know, led her to being accused of witchcraft. So Joan of Arc is fascinating in and of herself. I didn't know anything about her before this. I had heard her name, and that's about it. But this was in 1431 France. She was a French peasant girl who, believing she was acting under divine guidance, led the French army to critical victories against the English during the 100 Years' War. Her enemies reframed these visions as witchcraft and heresy, again, going against the dogma of the church. She was tried and accused of sorcery, consorting with demons, and rejecting Christian beliefs. And she was burned at the stake at the age of 19. 25 years later, the Catholic Church reversed the verdict and declared her innocent, which I found really interesting.
Yeah.
Anna Goldie. Are you familiar with that name?
Maybe. Goldie sounds familiar.
Goldie has an umlaut over the O. So if I'm pronouncing it wrong, I'm sure our listeners will tell me. This was the last witch executed in Europe, in Switzerland, in 1782. She worked as a servant in a wealthy household, and the family accused her of using witchcraft to make their child sick and magically causing pins and needles to appear in the child's food. She was tortured until she confessed to making a pact with the devil. She was executed by beheading, and her case is wildly believed to have been a cover-up for sexual abuse by her employer who wanted her silenced.
Ugh.
Mm-hmm. So, again, another way that witchcraft accusations were used to disempower women, especially from speaking out. In 2008, Switzerland officially recognized her as a victim of a miscarriage of justice. So we have that, I guess. Okay, this one was really interested. Anne Boleyn.
Anne Boleyn?
Anne Boleyn. Are you familiar with Anne Boleyn?
Is she the wife of Henry VIII?
Yes.
Then yes, her name is Anne Boleyn, and I am very familiar. She was accused of being a witch as a way for Henry to get rid of her.
Mm-hmm.
Divorced, beheaded, died. Divorced, beheaded, survived. That's how you know what happened to each of his wives.
Oh, okay. Good
He
to
divorced
know.
the first one. The second one was Anne, beheaded.
Mm.
And then
okay,
his favorite wife died in childbirth.
You know a lot more about Henry VIII than I expected.
Yeah, I don't know why. I went to his house once.
Okay. Great.
Continue. You asked if I knew about Anne Boleyn. I told you.
Okay, Anne Boleyn was never formally charged with witchcraft, but witchcraft rumors circulated heavily around her downfall. She was accused of using enchantment to seduce the king and manipulating Henry through supernatural means. She was ultimately executed on charges of adultery and treason. And she's a great example of how witchcraft accusations were used to delegitimize women's authority. Do you know about Eleanor Cobham, the
No.
Duchess of Gloucester?
I do not.
Okay, see? All right. She only knew about Henry VIII.
What? Why are you so offended that I knew about Anne Boleyn?
I'm mostly upset that I didn't know how to say her name.
Oh. Well, you learn something new every day.
I do. Eleanor Cobham was the wife of Humphrey, Duke of Gloucester, who is the heir to the English throne during Henry VI's reign. She was accused of consulting astrologers and necromancers and attempting to magically predict or cause the king's death. The charges were widely believed to be politically motivated. Her husband had powerful enemies at court, and removing Eleanor weakened his position. She was convicted of witchcraft, forced to do public penance, and imprisoned for the rest of her life. Her husband lost influence soon after. And this is an example of how witchcraft accusations could be used as political sabotage. I really loved the Royal Witches book. That blew my mind open. I listened to it while we were training for the half marathon last summer, and it was the only thing that motivated me to run when it was hot, hot, hot out. So that's how good it is.
I'm going to have to get it. It sounds really good.
Fascinating. Very dry, but fascinating. So I want to talk about how the witch hunts, quote unquote, ended, because as we talked about, there are modern day witch hunts happening all the time. But the important point is that the witch hunts didn't just end suddenly. They slowly became socially unacceptable for a couple of reasons. One is the rising skepticism that basically, during the Age of Enlightenment, philosophers and scholars increasingly emphasized reason, science, and empirical evidence, and started questioning whether witches really existed, whether confessions obtained under torture were reliable. They're not. And they basically denied that supernatural explanations were valid evidence. So as skepticism spread, the witch trials were seen as irrational or unjust. The other thing that I thought was interesting is one of the main reasons why the witch trials ended was because of legal reforms and a higher evidence standard in the courts. courts began requiring stronger proof for criminal convictions. And while earlier witch trials often relied on gossip, rumors, visions, or dreams, and confessions extracted under torture, by the late 1600s and early 1700s, many courts rejected these types of evidence. Without them, most accusations could not stand trial. Like, there was just no evidence. Mm-hmm. And one of the famous examples is the aftermath of the Salem Witch Trials, where the use of spectral evidence was later discredited. So you could no longer say, oh, I know so-and-so did this because they appeared to me in a dream. Shocking that it took so long for that to be dismissed in court.
Yeah. God.
In some areas, there was a formal repeal of witchcraft laws. For example, in Britain, the Witchcraft Act of 1735 replaced earlier laws that punished witches. Instead, now it punished people who pretended to have magical powers, effectively acknowledging that witchcraft itself was not real. But we will come to see that there are still some witch laws in place. Mm-hmm. Which leads us to modern day witch hunts. So, obviously, you know, if you agree with anything we've said on this podcast ever, you will also agree that the historical pattern of policing women's behavior has never completely disappeared. Women in public life, especially those who are outspoken, ambitious, controversial, often face disproportionate scrutiny and character attacks. And while this isn't the same as the historical witch trials, the language and cultural memory of witch hunts are sometimes used to discuss how societies react to women who challenge expectations. So I think we can all find examples from modern media of how a woman can do one thing and a man can do the same thing, and the woman is scrutinized so much more in the media than the man. Mm-hmm. I think about Harry Styles versus Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Both like during their relationship, but also now, right? Like, they both had major announcements in their career around the same time recently, and Taylor was scrutinized for being out of touch because of everything that was going on with ICE in the US, but Harry did not face that same scrutiny. And so that's just one example of like probably 1,000 we could give.
It makes me think of how the only person in jail right now from the Epstein files is the woman involved.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh.
Not that she shouldn't be, but like in a group of people who all did horrible, terrible things, the only person being currently held accountable is the woman.
Yes. Yes. Political witch hunts. One of the most famous examples is McCarthyism in the United States during the 1950s, when people were accused of being communist sympathizers during the Cold War.
Mm-hmm. Hence the Crucible.
Modern day witch hunt. I don't know the Crucible.
Oh, it's a play that's written about the Salem Witch Trials in the 1950s, meant to draw that parallel.
Yes. Yes. Okay, that does make sense. That does make sense.
Sorry. It's literally like, there's not really like direct, like there's no modern, it's literally all set in the witch trials, but it's like a fictionalized version of the events of the Salem Witch Trials in a play written because of the Cold War.
Yes. Okay, great. Yes. So because of this era, the phrase witch hunt entered common language. Moral panics tend to come up during times of political unrest, and modern societies sometimes experience waves of fear where certain groups are blamed for broader social anxieties. Examples include the Satanic Panic of the 1980s and 90s, which we will do an episode on. Mm-hmm. I hear you. I'm not done diving down that rabbit hole. I'm not ready. You will get a Satanic Panic episode when I'm ready. And you will like it.
You get what you get and you don't get upset.
But also conspiracy theories that frame certain groups as secretly controlling events or harming society. Illuminati.
Mm-hmm. The lizard people.
Right? Like so many. And then some scholars and journalists have compared modern internet outrage cycles to witch hunts. They compare cancel culture to witch hunts because of the tendency for pile-ons to happen and group dynamics and moral outrage to escalate rapidly, which I thought was an interesting parallel. Interesting because, yes, I see sometimes, but also I think, like, unlike the accusations of the witch hunts, like, sometimes the pile-on is warranted.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's where the difference is for me.
For sure. But I can see, like, there are sometimes, you know, obviously there's cancel culture that's related to things like racism and sexism and transphobia and things like that. I'm not talking about those things. But, like, you know, when you've seen, like, the first example that comes to mind is Michaela and in her divorce announcement when she says, sit down, take it in, I'm getting a divorce.
Yes.
People wanting her to, like, lose everything that she has because of that, or like because of the eyelash thing, right? Like wearing the false eyelashes.
Yeah.
The desire to take away
power from a woman,
take away her power, take away money, calling brands to be like, please don't work with this person, like, you know, et cetera, because of a, like, in my experience, what I see, like, doing the same things that people do to people who get caught being racist, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Those are the people whose job you should call, yes. But then applying that same level of outrage to a woman in power who has, like, done something not super kosher, but, like, not also of, you know, not a first degree murder.
Exactly. Right. Like, I find it so interesting that Michaela Noguera gets more hate than James Charles, who is a predator, like, accused but also admitted.
An alleged.
He admitted to it.
But I don't know if you, like, I don't know how that works. I'm just trying to not get us sued by James Charles. We don't have James Charles money.
Sure. But I'm like, how does James Charles still have a career? And like, his, like, painted brand pops up on my feed all the time and I don't see any hate in the comments. Michaela is just, like, doing her makeup and her comments are filled with hate. Make that make sense. Anyways, I feel like we could do a whole episode on that alone, but let's talk about modern witchcraft laws, because there are still laws in the United States and elsewhere that regulate fortune-telling, divination, and occult practices. They're rarely framed as witchcraft laws, but they're witchcraft laws. Most of them were written in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and were aimed at controlling spiritualists, mediums, palm readers, and tarot readers, often under fraud or vagrancy laws. The first we've mentioned before, but it is tarot and fortune-telling laws in the United States. Many U.S. cities historically passed laws that made it illegal to tell fortunes for money, claim supernatural insight, use tarot cards, astrology, or palm reading commercially. These laws frame divination as inherently deceptive. Typical wording in the old ordinances includes bans of people who pretend to tell fortunes, read palms, or predict the future. The assumption was that no one could genuinely do this, so charging for it must be fraud. I thought it was so interesting. I actually looked up one of these laws, and I want to read it verbatim to you.
Do you want to hear the one in Florida when you're done?
Sure. This is the New York fortune-telling law 165.35 on fortune-telling. A person is guilty of fortune-telling when, for fee or compensation which he directly or indirectly solicits or receives, he claims or pretends to tell fortunes or holds himself out as being able, by claimed or pretended use of occult powers, to answer questions or give advice on personal matters, or to exercise, influence, or affect evil spirits or curses. Except that this section does not apply to a person who engages in the aforedescribed conduct as part of a show or exhibition solely for the purpose of entertainment or amusement. Fortune-telling is a Class B misdemeanor in New York.
I have to have a license in the state of Florida. I was fingerprinted and my photo was taken.
Wild.
So I'll read you the county that I live in. I don't know what it's called, but it's in our code of ordinances for business. It's Article 8, fortune tellers, clairvoyants, and similar occupations. Fortune-telling permits. No fortune-telling establishment shall be allowed to commence or continue to operate without first having obtained a valid fortune-telling permit. Any business entity or person desiring to locate, operate, or continue the operation of fortune-telling shall be required to obtain a fortune-telling permit from the director of the department before the establishment or commencement of business as a fortune-teller. Fortune-telling establishments which have been established or have commenced business at their existing locations prior to the effective date of the ordinance from which this article derives shall be required to obtain a fortune-telling permit from the director of the department within 3 months of adoption of such ordinance. So it's tied to our business license, my fortune-telling license. And the best part is that I have to go into the police station once a year to renew it. Where nobody knows anything about the fortune-telling permit. And so I have to explain, and no shade to the people at the police department, they've all been perfectly nice to me about it, even when I've expected them not to be. But like, they're not exactly giving out a ton because it's obviously not super heavily enforced, but because we're a brick and mortar location, it's more important that we have it. Yeah. Because like anybody could call and say there's fortune tellers in there. Yeah. And so I have to explain what it is that I'm looking for, and people go, "What?" And now now that it's been a few years, but the first time it took like many hours the first day and like 2 or 3 trips. And now they kind of know who I am. I have to go to the police station, and then I have to go to the county clerk's office. They won't let me do anything virtually because of the nature of the permit.
It's wild.
It's wild. And it's like, why do you need my fucking fingerprints for me to be, and now I can't commit a crime.
Charlatan.
Let's see my immunity from prosecution.
This is also why if you are like booking a tarot reading, sometimes you'll see a little disclaimer that says like, this is for entertainment only. It's because that is like the loophole in the law. Yeah. There have been some challenges to this in the courts. One of them was in 2011, Nefedro versus Montgomery County. This was in Maryland. Basically, the court ruled the law was unconstitutional because it restricted protective speech. The court stated that fortune telling includes communication, interpretation, and advice, which are all forms of protective expression. And this became one of the most influential rulings striking down fortune telling bans. So, if you ever need that in your back pocket, just look that one up. Nefedro versus Montgomery County. Some other kind of interesting factoids that I found was that in 1979, the U.S. military officially recognized Wicca as a legitimate religion. And that means that practitioners can list Wicca on dog tags, hold services on military bases, and receive religious accommodations. And then in 2007, a pentacle was approved as a religious symbol on U.S. veterans' headstones, which I thought was very interesting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Laws policing witchcraft outside the U.S. include laws against quote-unquote black magic, sorcery, and occult practices. They still exist in places like Saudi Arabia, Tanzania, Papua New Guinea, and parts of Central Africa, as well as probably other places I haven't mentioned. But I just wanted to put that into perspective that witchcraft is definitely still policed. It is definitely still on the outskirts of society, despite the fact that listeners of this show may be very familiar with witchcraft and might be in circles that this is fully like accepted, maybe a little bit of skepticism, but definitely not like, you know, a modern day witch hunt. Other places, that is not the case. Like there are places, I heard of a place recently where like someone was literally like approached by police for having tarot cards. And that happens all the freaking time. And of course, like the more you present as being part of a marginalized group, the more likely you are to be, you know, for these laws to be enforced upon you. That's just a known fact we know of. Like you and I have a lot of privilege because we are white women. There are people with significantly less privilege than us that like maybe they wouldn't be treated so kindly going into the police station to get a fortune-telling license.
Of course. And that puts people in like a weird position of I have to go into a facility that I might be in danger in. Yeah. Because you don't know. I mean, like I was nervous going there for the first time to like say to a bunch of cops.
Mm-hmm.
I'm here for a fortune teller's license.
Yeah. Right.
I am very, and like, even I'm very privileged to live in a very like progressive town, you know, where a lot of the confusion was from like the who gives a fuck if you're a fortune teller, not from a like what's wrong with you, you know. And
yeah,
there's people, especially in like smaller towns and more conservative areas, that like don't have that level of privilege.
Yeah, totally.
That then makes you more vulnerable.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's my overview of the witch hunts.
Can I tell you about the hallucinogenics now?
Please, please.
Okay, so there is a theory that I don't think that I necessarily believe. I don't know how like factual it is. In my understanding, it's just like one of the possibilities that might have happened that I learned about when I was in school, when I was learning about the crucible. But there was a certain kind of fungus that grew either on like their corn or their wheat that had hallucinogenic properties.
Oh.
And basically the theory is that everybody was just high out of their minds through the entire thing, and that the original girls were having the fits and were seeing things, but it was induced by this hallucinogenic fungus.
Oh my God.
And so it makes sense like logically, but I also don't know, like, it's hard to put away the fact that it was mostly women and, you know, like the socioeconomic parts of it and things like that. And so I think that, again, like the truth maybe lies a little bit in the middle, but there's a chance that they were all hallucinating shit. Because I think there's even like, I think people were seeing shit in courtrooms in Salem.
Oh.
And there were like potentially like shared hallucinations.
Yeah. Wow. Maybe we should do a whole episode on Salem. I didn't want to give Salem too much airtime because I feel like it gets a lot of airtime.
I was happy to learn about those the lesser known to me European trials, because it is like, it's interesting. I mean, obviously from an American perspective, we learn more about our own history, but to know that like tens of thousands of people were murdered and I just don't know about a lot of it is so wild.
Yeah. 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 It's fascinating. So again, I'll leave those 4 books, audiobooks, linked down in the description of this episode if you want to dig into any of them. Heal the Witch Wound has like a little bit of information about the witch trials and then talks a lot about like sort of how this patterns into our lives today and what we can do about it. How to Kill a Witch was very focused on like Scottish witch trials. Royal Witches, incredible book, blew my mind. If you're going to read one of them, read that one. And then Lights, Camera, Witchcraft is less about the witch trials, more about sort of media's representation of witchcraft in American film and television, which I found to be interesting. Sort of like after learning this, kind of you can't unsee it.
Yeah, totally. Well, thanks for doing that deep dive.
Hey, anytime.
Satanic Panic next.
I'm going to need some time.
I know.
I'm going to need some time.
I have some books that I want to read too before we launch into that. I'm excited. And I have a lot of thoughts and opinions.
I know. Also, I really want Sarah Marshall to respond to my email. So if anyone knows her.
Slide into our DMs. Next week, we are starting an entirely different kind of deep dive, which is into the Greek pantheon.
Woo!
It's my turn to teach Molly.
Yay! Deep dive. This is great because I've been reading a lot of Greek pantheon smut, so it'll go nicely with that.
It does pair nicely. All right, we love you.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to Demystify Magic with Molly and Madison. All our links, from spells to ceremonies to ways to support us, are waiting in the show notes.
We'd love to hear your magic moment of the week. Share it in a review, tag us on socials, or bring it to our Patreon clubhouse at demystifymagic.com.
And remember, you are the magic.
Okay, love you.
Bye.
Greenlight helps kids learn about money by actually using it. It's a debit card and money app that teaches kids to earn, save, and spend in real life, not just swipe and hope for the best. Learning happens naturally, in the moment. Parents can set limits, see real-time spending, and guide better habits all in one place, without constant check-ins or cash runs. Don't wait. Try Greenlight risk-free today at greenlight.com/trygreenlight.